it's not so much the porn, the visual. The visual is stimulating a chemical response inside of our brain, inside of our body, that dopamine hit, that boom, like that feel good response. That's why when we're in the act of doing it, it's like that anticipation, and then that release. It's like that feeling of ecstasy. That is what we're becoming addicted to. We've developed a neural pathway in our brain, though, that in order to get that feeling, the only way that we can do it is through the visual pornography. That's why a lot of times guys experience the loss of intimacy with a real physical woman, because they're so used to that response, that feeling of ecstasy, without a lack of a better word, of it being from a computer screen. So when we get in with a real life physical woman, it's like we can't replicate it. I've heard stories of guys literally like not being able to get an erection without their hands touching a keyboard. These are just some severe cases. You said a few things there at the beginning that are a consistent theme, so I just want to make sure we highlight them. You talked about early on, in your life at your younger age, it wasn't as readily available as it is today. Like we had to steal the magazine, and I've had this conversation with a handful of guys on the show here, where it's like, our first exposure to it was like out in the fort in the woods, like the magazine, like underneath the leaves. You just hoped like when you showed up next week, like it was still there, that another gang of kids didn't find it. But this is I think the point here is this is an awareness to parents, realizing that we are in a different time than when we were growing up. Realizing like if your child has a smartphone, if your child has a social media profile, and guys, if you've heard multiple episodes, I probably sound like I repeat myself, but it's so important to really become aware of this, that it's not so much more just something we have to worry about when our kids are away from us out in the woods. It's like, no, it's actually right there within their hands. So just bring that awareness. The second thing he said is along the lines of how porn gives you the feeling of being a man without requiring anything else of you. There's a great quote by John Eldridge, and I'm gonna off quote it a little bit here, but it's right along those lines. Is what makes pornography so addictive is the fact that it does give a man everything he needs in terms of intimacy without requiring anything of him. If you're in a relationship, if you're married, if you're engaged, if you're with somebody else, like, part of that relationship is going to be that sexual intimacy, that feeling of closeness together, that sharing of touch, feeling sexual intimacy. But in order to get there, like, you have to show up as a masculine man. You have to show up however you guys have determined that between your relationship, a provider, a protector, somebody that's the leader of the house. Like, there's so many things that you need to do as a man before you get that other benefit. But with pornography, no. It's just a click away. Boom, I got everything I need. So it starts to really rewire our brain as what's expected of us from men. We can still just go get all the same feelings, that same dopamine release, that same chemical response, et cetera, but we don't actually have to show up and be the man that we need to be. So